Okay, early to bed, early to rise makes a woman healthy, wealthy, and wise. That's why you're wiser than me. It's Stephen.
Hi, I'm Maurice. I'm an executive by day and a wild man by night.
Hi, my name's Monroe. You've probably already noticed that I have incredibly blue eyes.
Hi, my name is Phil. Most of my friends call me Big Phil.
Okay. I like to talk to people deep into the night.
I play guitar.
I'm Eitan.
Hi, I'm Fred.
Hi, my name's Mike, and if you're sitting there watching this tape smoking your cigarette, well, hit the fast forward button, because I don't smoke and I don't like people who do smoke.
I'm not afraid to get sand on my tuxedo if you're not afraid to let the wind mess your hair up a little bit when I take the top down.
Perhaps even a nice bath with some champagne and candles.
Hi, Mom.
I do fashion photography, and I do consider myself a refined valley dude.
Okay, I'm looking for a trendy girl with a simple smile. Wait, it says here, oh, excuse me.
I don't know, what I'm not looking for is some big, overgrown monster that's always thinking about food and...
Whoso binds to himself a joy, doth its winged life destroy.
I like to do a lot of sailing. I like to outdoor activities. I like climbing. I like travel.
I took a sponge ball and was pulling him out of a little girl's ear.
Vivacious, foxy.
I'm looking for the goddess. Are you the goddess? Who is the goddess? The goddess is the woman, is a woman, is any woman, is all women.
If you show up to a dating video or a date wearing fingerless gloves and looking like you're doing a Mad Max cosplay, you probably aren't going to have a lot of success. Those videos, there's more. There's countless videos on YouTube of these like 80s dating videos, and I'd encourage you to check them out because they are countless. Like literally, there's hours of cringe. If you like cringe, fantastic stuff. And that you have to remember, this was before like online dating was actually an acceptable thing. Like this was kind of the fringe. So I also want to know the story of Fred, the guy dressed like a Viking, and I want to know what type of dates he happened to get out of that. And I want to know his backstory. Like I want a full Netflix show about this guy. I want to know more about him. But it kind of shows the crazy things that we'll do in the pursuit of love. And love is a powerful thing. It drives us in so many ways. The feeling and the desire to feel loved, to experience love, and to give love. It's something that's a part of all of us. Love in general will actually bring up tons of emotions, will drive us towards so many things. It will cause us to do completely irrational things. It will cause us to seek entertainment that's irrational. Like how many times have you watched a romantic comedy? Like, it's not really my favorite thing, but I've watched a few of them. They're not usually fantastic. There's not a lot of romantic comedies winning Best Picture. It's like, well, Parasite was a great movie, but this terrible movie with like this romantic comedy is going to edge it out at the box office or in an award. It just doesn't happen. They're not high end, but there's something about them that drive us towards them. And also with music, think about it. Even if you've never experienced a dating relationship, even when you're like 12 years old, you've never experienced love at all. All you're just desperate to awkwardly hold hands in the back of a movie theater or something like that, or on the bus. That's your level of relationship. You still are listening to these songs about love like they're so entrenched in who you are, and they really connect with you on just a psychological and a spiritual level. Even the idea of like long-lost love drives us towards it, right? Like these songs that tell us, even if you've never had heartbreak really in your life, there's something about Taylor Swift saying, we are never, ever getting back together. That it's just like some 12-year-old goes like, yeah, we're never getting back together, never. It's like they've never, ever, ever been in a relationship. Or MCR saying, I don't love you like I did yesterday. Or even better or worse, depending on how you feel in the moment. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. It's not good when she's away. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone, and she's always gone too long every time she goes away. Funny story about that. I once had a terrible breakup, like emotionally crippled by it. I'm okay now, but it was bad. I was 20 years old, and I thought I was never going to get over it. My friend, who actually works with me now, named Daniel, he thought it would be funny. He's a musician. He would sing that Bill Withers song, Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone, basically whenever he would see me. He'd just start playing piano and serenading me, and it didn't really speed up the process of getting over it. But now that I'm 30, it's funny. I don't recommend it, but that's my connection to that song. There's something about those songs, there's something about the pursuit of love that just makes us want to seek it. We'll seek, even just in our entertainment, there's something about it. It drives how we spend our money and just how we generally live our lives. And it will, like I said, will lead us towards these unrealistic, these unrational things that we'll do. And maybe the most irrational thing that we do is the first date. Putting ourselves in harm's way, really. Is there anything more scary than a first date? Like, there's so much potential. There's so much potential because you might be sitting in Starbucks waiting for that, maybe you've never met them before, maybe it was on a dating app, maybe you kind of just hung out a bit. Is that person who walks into the Starbucks, will that be the future spouse for me? For the next 50, 60, 70 years, I will be sharing every intimate moment with this person, the future parent, co-parent, the father of my child, the mother of my child. This could be the beginning of our beautiful story. This could be it. Or in 2 years, I could be on a Netflix documentary about how this person stole like $100,000 from me and posed it, you know what I'm talking about, Tinder swindler, wild show, but it all starts with a first date. There's a lot of directions it could go. So much optimism, so much danger. The risk is intense. The first date can be really weird, and that's why I went to the internet for advice and to research. And I found on Twitter some of the worst date examples. We're going to throw this up on the back screen here. The first one, I feel like Vanna White from Wheel of Fortune. The worst Vanna White ever. Not a good replacement. All right. Are we not going to get it? Okay. They're not there. Now let me tell you, I'll just tell you what my favorite one was. My favorite one was this. He offered that we should wash his cat. We did. And I just picture these people, like it's your first date and you're kind of begrudgingly washing his cat in a bathtub. He's like, hold down whiskers, I'm trying. This cat like attacking and just like this horrible first date encounter. And then I picture that relationship blossoming into a marriage. Chances are it probably didn't. Not gonna lie, I don't believe that that relationship went the right way. But first dates are generally bad. Like, I've been on a couple bad first dates. I think everyone who's been on a first date has had one or two. It's just scary. And, like, you're being so vulnerable, and, like, if there's this unmet expectation, there's this inherent expectation you both have. You both recognize the risk and what you're kind of looking for. But, like, it's weird to be like, oh, so are we going to get married? Like, could this be the one? Like, you're kind of acknowledging that, but there's this awkward tension within it. And that's why we put ourselves through it, though, is because we actually are driven towards this inherently, psychologically, mentally, physically, and spiritually. So what do I mean by that? Well, humans are social creatures. We're designed to be together, and romantic relationships are a part of how God designed us. Now, they're not everything. They're not the point of living, but they're a huge part of it. So a good example of this is if we look in the Bible, in the book of Mark, there's a verse that starts in chapter 10, and we're going to look at verses 6 to 9, and it says this. Jesus is talking. He says, but at the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. Okay? So Jesus is doing a couple things here. First of all, in the context of that conversation, he's answering a question about divorce. And he's basically saying, let's not do that. That's not the best case scenario. And marriage is really something you should take seriously because it's more than just the psychological. It's more than just hanging out together. It's more than just sex. There's actually something that we're designed for here. And that's really the reason why we have such an emotional connection and emotional response to it. He's actually referencing in this verse, a verse that's in Genesis, the first book of the Bible, where it basically says the same thing, where God recognizes and says it's not good for man or woman to be alone, and that's why he created the idea of a romantic partnership together. So as he's giving this reference, he's answering some questions about that, but he's also making a major statement about how we're designed. This isn't just something we decided would be cool. It's not like God was like, do it on your own, and we're like, yeah, but it'd be better with a partner. This is part of who we are. We're designed for this. Like, we want somebody else. That's why we're desperate at times, why we have this longing. And it's beyond just your synapses firing and your hormones and your testosterone and being a teenager or a young adult who's just always horny and doesn't know what to do all the time. That's a reality. That's a part of life. But we're being driven towards something beyond just physical, beyond just that emotional connection. There's something that's holistically spiritual, physical, and psychological. And it's good. That's why we want that. But there's a level of depth and connection that comes from this relationship that goes beyond physical sex in a marriage. And really, that's at the end of the day what our dating relationships are aimed at. And if you don't have that at least on some level, and I'm not saying put tons of pressure on and that every first date has to be like a checklist or a job interview to see if the job of my husband or wife is possible for you. Like, first of all, if you start off that way, that'd be hilarious, and please record it. But it's not a good way to have a successful second date or any second date at all. Frankly, there's more to marriage than sex, and there needs to be more as we develop our relationships and as we date and as we work towards dating than just thinking about the physical. And I know at your stage of life, the hormones are just going crazy. And it's hard sometimes to look towards that. But we owe it to ourselves to do that. So despite what culture may say about marriage and about relationships, it is more than sex. And it's more than what a Tinder hookup, the transactional nature of that, or what an unsolicited nude can fulfill, or any sort of pornographic encounter, whether that's online or in the future in the metaverse, which is a whole other conversation and is going to mess up the whole world if we allow it to happen, but that's a side note. Love drives us towards itself. And we're desperate to find it. We seek it. It's in us. But there's so many bad actors out there. There's so many things that are posed as shortcuts that actually can harm us. And there's so many different elements of that. And I just wanted to give a plug. Things like pornography that present a shortcut to the fulfillment, those feelings, but they end up actually leaving you broken. And if you weren't here last week and you haven't had the opportunity, Pastor Thomas was here, and he absolutely killed it with a message on pornography. And if you're struggling with porn, or you know anyone that is, or you just, like, generally anyone here owes it to themselves to just go and check out on our YouTube account or on the podcast apps, any of them, Spotify, Apple. Go check that out. It's up right now, and it was so good. So please don't miss out on just the freedom that will come from that message. Don't miss it. Back to dating, though. Dating is, frankly, a necessary evil. Like, there's really no other way to put it. Like, it's this uncomfortable thing that we have to go through. And which we established, it's like a special type of torture at times, because you're kind of going through crushing breakups at times. It's very rare that one person just meets their first boyfriend or girlfriend and then ends up marrying them and living happily ever after. I know that that's kind of what Disney movies teach you as you're a kid, but it don't work that way usually. There's usually some awkward dates. There's immaturity that leads to things like whether it's being cheated on or just being mistreated in general, these painful experiences. There's so many ups and downs that come through the dating experience. And before you can feel this fulfillment that you're designed for, you have to seek it out and go through the bumpy road to get there. Or just in general, maybe you haven't experienced that and you're like, man, I'm trying to find somebody and it's just painfully difficult. Like, it feels like there's nobody out there for me. Like, yeah, I understand there's a lot of fish in the sea, but they're all 30 living with their mom, and they want me to support them as they seek to be a SoundCloud rapper. Like, there's all these things that are so tough because it's not just about finding the right person. It can be about finding anyone, and it just seems like nobody is on the same page as me. Where do I go with this? No, tonight I'm not here to give you like 10 ways to be the best boyfriend or girlfriend or spouse. I'm not here to life hack your relationships. I'll leave that to BuzzFeed and all these online places to give you your relationship hacks. But what I do want to talk to you about is how to get the most out of your dating relationships, hopefully your eventual marriage, and even before you might be in one. Before you're dating, how do you prepare? Because it's Valentine's Day night, and I'm assuming if you're here, there's a few single people here, which could be beneficial. Hey, stay after. That's probably the best night to meet someone. I'm not going to lie. Probably a few single people. And that's good. Just saying. I want to talk to you like I would talk to myself when I was younger if I had the chance. Because I made a lot of mistakes in dating, and I made a lot of mistakes in the pursuit of dating. And if I'm honest with you, I didn't date that much before college. Not because I didn't want to, just wasn't really happening for me. Like I was actually frankly pretty desperate to. Like I really wanted to date someone. I just felt like that would make me so happy. That would be the thing that would just fill that void in my life. But it just never seemed to happen. And it wasn't that I couldn't find girls I wanted to date. It's not that they didn't want to date. They just didn't want to date me. It's complicated, right? That's why on my Facebook status I put relationship status complicated, because I want to date them. They want to date me. I actually have a friend one time, and he told me he was in a love triangle. And I was like, could you explain what a love triangle is? He's like, well, this other couple is dating, and I love his girlfriend. Triangle. It's like, that's not a triangle. That's not. You're just the other man. There's so many problems with that. My mind broke. We had to have a long chat about what's appropriate and what's not. But that was my life. I was really just like feeling this desperation. I thought that when all my friends were having, through junior high and high school, were having these relationships, and not that they had any depth to them, they were just like childish, but I felt like I was being left behind. And I had this real sense of desperation. And it sucked. And I understand, I remember this because there's so much pressure when you're a young adult, when you're late teens, early 20s, especially in church. It's like if you don't have 15 kids in your own TLC show by 22, you're falling behind. If you don't have enough kids to have a traveling band by 25, then you've missed out on life. And if you're not married in your early 20s, you honestly feel at times like you're this close to just being an 80-year-old who lives by yourself with 17 cats, and you've missed out on life. And what it comes down to is I think that the pressure leads to this real sense of FOMO, this fear of missing out. We're going to be the only one in our friend group, the only one who doesn't get to experience all those things that we talked about, that desire and that need to be loved, to experience love, and to love someone else that we're designed for. And I get it, and I've been there. And it's not a happy feeling to be in. It's not a happy place to be. But eventually I did date a few people, and I did end up marrying one of those people, and I've been married for almost 10 years now. But if I could look back on my life then, if I could go back in time, jump in the time machine, and have a conversation with myself at around 20 years old, I would say this: Jeff, spend less time seeking the feeling of love and spend more time working on yourself, for yourself, but also for that other person. Because we can get so focused on just trying to achieve this relationship status, and that's kind of the goal, and that's what we work towards, that we don't work on ourselves, that we don't look at what we can do now in this season and in this time to be better, to grow better, to be closer to Jesus, to be a better person in the future and a better partner and spouse. Relationships are inherently vulnerable, super, super vulnerable. And when you get into them kind of progressively, from the moment you start dating to the moment you're married, you are increasingly more and more vulnerable with that person. You're sharing your deepest fears, you're sharing your deepest, darkest secrets, and eventually, you're in a sexual relationship, you're literally vulnerable. You're fully exposed emotionally and literally physically. There's nowhere to hide. This is the person that is going to know you all through. The most vulnerable situation you'll ever be in is with your married spouse. And that doesn't quite sound that exciting. It's actually a state of discomfort, and to get there progressively, it's going to be an uncomfortable ride. But I'll tell you this, it is something that is deeply worth pursuing. Because at the end of hard work, at the end of that vulnerability and discomfort, comes one of the most fulfilling relationships that God ever designed for us. Marriage is tough, but it's worth it. And we don't just get there in a moment. Before you can be vulnerable with another person, though, you have to be vulnerable with yourself. And that's not easy. And how do you get to the point of truly being vulnerable with yourself? Because I kind of like to create this false persona of myself at times. I like to pretend that I have it all together. Newsflash, I don't. Never have, never will. But if you're not willing to be vulnerable with yourself, you'll never address those problems. And the best way to be vulnerable with yourself is, before you can do that, you need to be vulnerable with God. You need to have that self-analysis, that real chat with not just yourself, not just looking at a book, but with the God who created you, to reassess your life. And that's a key. Before you can be vulnerable with someone else, you need to be vulnerable with yourself. And to get there, you need to be vulnerable with God. And that's a process. The reality is you don't just want to have any relationship, but you want to have a healthy relationship. You want to have a healthy dating relationship, which leads to a healthy marriage and maybe kids, and then you can show the kids and give the example of how to have a healthy relationship, and it will just kind of emulate and continue on and be a healthy relationship that grows beyond itself. But the fact is, and the truth is, that healthy relationships, they start with healthy individuals. Healthy relationships start with you being healthy in your own life, with you being comfortable and confident in who you are, and you knowing who you are not just as a person, as a leader, as an employee, as a family member, but just in Jesus, in God. You need to know who you are as a follower of Jesus in order to really be able to bring everything to the table in a relationship down the road, or right now, that's possible. You're single now, and you don't just have to wait for somebody to come along to motivate you. In fact, you shouldn't. And that's one of the flaws I had in my life. Your healthy future relationship begins right now. Your healthy marriage begins right now. Getting closer to God and being the person that you could be starts now. Don't wait for an outside stimulus. Don't wait for somebody to come and be the reason that you start to try and be better. Too many times I'd be like, well, I'm kind of living for me right now. I'm going to travel, find myself. Heard that before? And then once I find a girlfriend, then I'll start working on all these plethora of flaws that I have in my life, in my character, my selfishness, all these things. That's not the way to do it, but I think that's kind of the trap we fall into. When you're in a relationship, you're not just finding somebody to fill a void in your life. It's not a transactional thing. It's not just like, well, I have my needs and I need you to fill it. It doesn't work like that. That won't go very far. That's a broken way of doing it. Eventually, you find your spouse, and you're just not just filling a void for them either. This is a partnership. It's not parasitic. It needs to be symbiotic. If you're a parasite in a marriage, your marriage will not be healthy. But if you work together and build towards something, if you're working on the same page, there's something beautiful that can come from that. And it's not just a marriage. A healthy marriage starts with healthy dating. And a healthy dating relationship starts with you being a healthy individual. So how do we get there? Well, the fact is that Tinder and porn and those things have created that transactional nature. And the temptation is just to think that those gaps are going to be filled by another person. But the fact is we actually have a lot of work to do on ourselves. We can't just live in this selfish state, but we actually need to take a long look in the mirror, be vulnerable with God, be vulnerable with ourselves, and address the issues that, quite frankly, could be toxic, not just a toxic relationship, but could be toxic just to our life in general. The parts of me that will actually hurt relationships down the road, the parts of me that maybe have hurt relationships before and caused them not to work out, the parts of me that don't just impact romantic relationships, but damage every single interpersonal relationship and interaction that I might have with other people, with the world around me, with my workplace, with my friends, my family. What are the things in my life that aren't in alignment with God? To be able to truly love another person, you need to seek the good things that love brings, the things that reflect the image of God. God is love. Love, the good characteristics of love are a reflection of the image of God, which we're created in and we're designed to reflect. Jesus gave the perfect example of love through everything he did when we read the Bible when he was on earth. And we're called to be the same in every interaction we have, in every day of our life, in every moment, to follow that example. And that should carry into our romantic relationships, our dating, and our marriages as well. And that's how you succeed at life. There's so many different ways that people will tell you, here's the hack, here's how you do this, here's what's wrong with your psyche, here's your personality type, here's your love language. All those things can be valuable. But at the end of the day, the more you look like Jesus, the better all your relationships are going to function. Because Jesus is the standard, Jesus is the example, Jesus will carry you through every circumstance, every relationship, and every challenge, whether that's romantic or whether that's anything that you're facing. That is the standard. That's why we're here, that's who we follow, that's why we worship Jesus. He is the image of God. He is the embodiment of love. And in a book in the Bible called 1 Corinthians, Pastor Thomas was talking about this last week as well, and I want to visit back there again. In 1 Corinthians 13, a guy named Pastor Paul, he goes and says and talks about love, and he gives a great description of what love across the board is. And it goes like this: love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. Is that you? Do you perfectly embody that in whatever stage of life you're in? Because I know I don't. That's a struggle for me. That's the standard. That's what we should be seeking. The reality is this. Life and following Jesus is a constant journey of failing and getting back up and trying to succeed to look and act and be more like Jesus in everything we do. So if you're reading that and you're like, man, there's a lot on that list that I just, that ain't me right now. I'm really struggling with this or that or whatever. Pick whichever one you want. It's okay. We're all working towards that together. Nobody is perfect, but this is the standard. This is love. In its truest, purest form, this is a descriptive that shows us what love should look like. And the hard thing about this type of love is you just can't flip on the switch and do it. Like I said, if you're waiting for someone to come into your life to try and achieve this, you are going to miss out. You will never be doing it for the right reasons, and you'll never reach the potential that you could be. If you're just changing for someone else so that they'll like you and that they'll love you and they'll want to date you and they'll be attracted to you and your personality, well, that will work, but eventually that persona, that mask you're putting on is going to break down, and they're going to show who you really are. If you don't act a certain way because your heart's been changed, eventually that just becomes an act. It just becomes a character you're playing, a character of the perfect boyfriend, the perfect girlfriend, the perfect spouse, whatever it is. That is eventually going to break down because it's a facade. It's not getting to the core of who you are. It's not getting to the core of the issues in your life, which are sin and brokenness that come from being a human and having this human condition that we have. You need to be working on it now. You can't just flip the switch on when it's convenient. We need to be seeking good things at all times in every element of our life. When I look back on my life, though, I recognize one of my mistakes was thinking that I should just wait for that person and then I could turn it on and I'd figure it out. That it was just going to be that easy. When I found myself in dating relationships and I just wasn't a great person. A lot of things that I needed to work on. And you don't realize how hard dating, how hard relationships are until you're actually in them with people. And maybe you've never been in a serious dating relationship. You've just kind of been a couple of summer flings or something like that. When you actually get down to the vulnerability that comes from a serious relationship, seeking a healthy marriage, it's tough. And the things about you that need to be worked on. Not the things that make you who you are, not putting this impossible standard, but the things that are selfish, that are the opposite of what this verse in Corinthians are talking about. Those things will cause your relationships to stumble, sometimes more than others, but it will always cause that on some level. So let me ask you this. When you look in the mirror, when you hit the pillow at night, when your head hits the pillow, and you actually have time to be alone with you and who you are and your character, is the person that looks back at you, does it reflect these things that we just represented in 1 Corinthians? Patience, kindness, not envying, not boasting, not being proud, not dishonoring others, not being self-seeking, not being quick to anger, not keeping records of wrongs, not delighting in evil, but always protecting, trusting, hoping, and persevering. Is that you? Or is that something you need to work on? Is that something that you need to work on and bring to the table to God and say, I need to be better in this area. I need to be more like you, Jesus. I'm seeking you, and it's time for me to take life seriously and actually try and have my character and my behavior and my heart changed by you. Is that you? Or do we have work to do? Listen, healthy relationships, they start with healthy singles. And like I said, if you're here tonight and you're single, that's okay. And if you think like, man, if only I could get a girlfriend or a boyfriend, I could start working on this stuff. I get that thought, but it actually starts today. Your healthy marriage starts today. Your healthy dating relationship starts today. It doesn't matter where you are in the process. You can take control of that element of your life and improve it in this space that you might feel like you're stuck in right now. You need to experience and know true love before you can give true love. And that comes from knowing Jesus and reflecting him in every element of your life. And not like being healthy. When I say health, I'm not talking about the type of health that comes from like self-help books or like bubble baths or just like reading the right things or learning to love yourself, daily affirmations, all these things that kind of become, oh, if I could meditate more, then I would know myself and then that person would love me because I'd be more confident. I'm telling you right now, if you don't have Jesus being a part of your story, being a part of what you're building towards as you enter relationships, your relationships are going to struggle and you're not going to be the best version of yourself or have the best relationship you possibly can. And if you can grasp that in this moment right now, wherever you are, I promise not only will it make your relationships better, it will make your life better because you're going to follow Jesus. There's no place where you can be in your life that is more, not necessarily comfortable, but more purposeful and that can actually find you in a state of peace than following Jesus and being where he's called you to and being who he's called you to. True health comes from seeking Jesus and working to reflect his example in everything that we do. And that will make every element of our lives better. True health comes from seeking true love and from seeking Jesus. Unless we seek these good things before we're married, before we're dating, we won't reflect the loving character that comes from Jesus, from knowing him when that special person actually enters into the story of our lives. This is fundamental. We won't be the type of spouse our partners actually deserve or need if we don't bring Jesus into the picture now, and if we don't actually try and be more like him in this moment, if we don't interact with our community in a way that reflects these ideas that are talked about in 1 Corinthians, if we don't have these attributes of love in everything we do with every person we come into contact with, if we just reserve it for this future one relationship, if we don't mirror Jesus in our everyday life, we're not going to do it in the situations that are beneficial to us in the short term either. We're not going to be great boyfriends or girlfriends or husbands and wives. We need to seek Jesus now, and it will improve every element of our lives holistically. And frankly, it'll probably be a little more attractive. It's a little easier when you look at like Jesus, when you talk like Jesus, when you actually reflect those characters of love, it's going to be easier to find somebody they'll want to be with you. But when we're living in a way that's selfish or transactional, people pick up on that. Because that's not it. That's not what's good. That's not in alignment with God. It's narcissism, it's selfishness, and frankly, that's a sinful way to live. So here's some challenges. If you're here tonight, you're single, or you're dating, or you're engaged, these are the realities. Don't wait till you're dating to get close to Jesus. That step starts right now. Don't wait till you're married to deal with your porn problem. Don't wait until you're kind of up against the grain or your back's up against the wall and now I have to deal with these things. Deal with it now, not because it's going to be a problem in a conversation over coffee later. Talk about these problems with God, be vulnerable with God, and then deal with these things because you need to be more like Jesus. That is the driving force, not an external relationship. Don't wait until you find somebody you want to pursue to act kind to people around you. If you're not kind to other people, there's always this saying, if you want to see if a person is a good person, see how they treat animals. Well, not everyone likes dogs. But what I will say is watch how people treat other people around you. If you're on a date with someone and the person is rude to the waiter or the waitress, right? Can be kind of weird. How you act now is important to how you'll act later. How you treat people will impact how you treat this person. If you think you're going to be rude and condescending to your family, even though they're crazy and what they post on the internet is absolutely insane, but you think that suddenly you're going to have patience and be kind to the person that you're going to be dating and married to, it just won't translate. We start now. We start following Jesus now. We start reflecting what true love is, which is Jesus in this moment. And here's another one. Don't wait. If you're dating here tonight, don't wait for marriage to pray with your partner. Don't wait until, we won't do it now. We're just dating. We're just engaged now. The day when we get married, then we'll do it. Those patterns will not begin. Start now. We don't postpone good behavior. We don't postpone good things in our lives. We do it right now because it's the best thing for us. If you don't seek to love your neighbor unselfishly before you're married, you probably won't live unselfishly within your relationships. It all comes down to start now. If you don't seek to live like Jesus today, you won't magically reflect him within your romantic relationships down the road. So tonight, we're all kind of in different spots. Maybe you're here tonight and you're dating, maybe you're engaged, maybe you're even married, maybe you're here and you're desperately, desperately, desperately single. I've been there. And that's just the reality. But you don't have to wait. You're not trapped in the season of life you're in. You're not trapped in this moment. It's not like you can't escape. You actually have things you can do now. You can actually do things that will benefit your marriage and to make you date well down the road. And that starts with being vulnerable with yourself, starts with being vulnerable with God, and finding ways that we can better mirror true love and Jesus' example in everything that we do. We need to start now because it's just what Jesus has called us to. So tonight, I want you to do something that we should do regularly. This is not just something that's good for dating. This is something that's good for all of us, and that's an audit of your heart. And to figure out in what ways do I need to look more like Jesus? What do I need to change? What do I need to actually work on to reflect Jesus in everything that I do in my life? And there's a great verse I like to go to, and I read semi-regularly just for this process, and it's in Psalm 139. It says this, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you, and lead me along the path of everlasting life." And there's a couple of things that I want to point out in this because it's actually something you have to do, and you have to give permission, really, for God to be able to work in your lives. Yeah, He'll talk to you, but there's something about a posture that we have. It says, "Search me, O God. Search my heart." There's a posture of, God, I'm just going to let you in. Nothing's too close to me. I'm not going to hide anything from you. I need you to look at everything. It says, "Test me. Know my thoughts. Know what I'm thinking. Know where I'm at. Know the things that only I think." And this is the big one. Point out anything that offends you. Not just offense, not just in a condescending way, but like, what are the things in my life that aren't aligned with true love? What are the things in my life? What are the patterns? What are the things in my heart that are not contributing to the best version of me I can be, the version of me that seeks Jesus and looks more and more like Jesus? What are the patterns that I need to fix to align with you and what you've called me to? And the last line is, "Lead me along the path of everlasting life." Change how I live. Guide me. Expose the areas I need to work on that aren't in alignment with you, and then help me to be more like you. Change my heart so my behavior can fall in line as well. And that will help us in all things. So my encouragement to you tonight is this. Seek Jesus in all seasons. Singleness, dating, marriage, parenting. Never stop growing. Because the fact is, it doesn't matter what stage you're in, you always have something to work on. It's not a condescending, you're not good enough. Listen, we always have room to grow. And I want to put the third thing here, and I want to let you know that you can take the pressure off. You don't have to have it all together. It's a process. Life is a process. It's a journey. And you don't have to be the perfect spouse right now if you're 18, 19, 20, or in your 20s, whatever. It's not the reason that you can't find somebody to date you or to marry you isn't because you suck necessarily. And that you have to have it all together or else it's not going to work or you're never going to be worthy of being loved. But the point of this is to be the best you can be, to be the most like Jesus you can be, to be the best human being you can be. And it will bring that joy, it will bring that peace and that perspective to everything, including your relationships. So tonight the band's going to play. And I want you to think through this verse. "Search me, O God, know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you, and lead me along the path of everlasting life." We do this now. We do this regularly. You can do it in your car. You can do it at your house. Listen to God to point out the ways, what do I need to work on? What are the things that I need to really, really contribute more effort to so that I can reflect what we read in 1 Corinthians. How do I project true love to every element of my life, but also in a way that will make me a better boyfriend or girlfriend, husband or wife down the road?